Welcome to the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast. Our theme for 2026 continues. The future of work, meaning is the new money, because meaning is simply the greatest motivational force on earth. But 68% of the global workforce is disengaged, leaving $9.6 trillion in productivity on the table every year. Gen Z, the canary in the coal mine, is exposing structural failures everyone else learned to ignore, rationalize, or endure. I'm Dr. John Dentico, your host, bringing over 30 years of experience in leadership, strategic thinking, and designing solutions that solve real problems. This podcast delivers boots-on-the-ground intelligence, real conversations with CEOs, fractional executives, coaches, and small and medium-sized business leaders navigating the same crisis, mitigating the talent hemorrhage before competitive viability disappears. We go beyond symptoms like engagement scores and wellness programs to focus on the structural failures beneath them. Frontline intelligence, actionable frameworks, hard truths. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Now let's throttle up and dive into today's episode. Hello again and welcome to the Throttle Up Leadership Podcast for 2026. This is your host, Dr. John Dentico. With me today is Karim Jaafar, the founder of grithouse.me and an award-winning filmmaker whose journey in storytelling has taken an exciting turn into the dynamic world of brand narratives. Originally a film and TV production professional, Karim seamlessly transitioned from the realm of filmmaking to becoming a creative force in the advertising and communication industry. With a profound belief in the transformative power of storytelling, Karim has lent his narrative prowess to some of the world's most recognized brands, from crafting compelling tales for household names like Kellogg's, Pringles, Nestle, and Cartoon Network, to collaborating with numerous global brands. Karim has become synonymous with creating impactful and memorable content. Driven by a passion for creativity and a deep appreciation for social connectivity, Karim has expanded his expertise into content strategy. He played a pivotal role in developing social tales for a diverse range of clients. Beyond traditional storytelling, Karim has stepped into the entrepreneurial world, where technology takes center stage in connecting brands with people. In this ever-evolving landscape, he continues to push the boundaries of creativity, using storytelling to forge authentic connections between brands and audiences, and I'm truly pleased and delighted to have him here with me this morning on the podcast. Good morning, Karim. How are you?
Great. Thank you so much, JD, for having me.
Great to have you here. Great to start off the year like this.
Amazing.
So let me ask you this, Karim. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up? And what were some of the influences in your early life?
Sure. Thank you so much. I was actually born in Cyprus, and then we moved to Canada, and I kind of had my childhood years there. Then my father had an opportunity to move to Egypt. We lived there for a couple of years as well. Then we moved back to Lebanon, where we're originally from. My parents are Lebanese. I'm Canadian, Lebanese. We moved back to Lebanon, where I continued my middle to high school and then went to university there. And in between, I was working freelance jobs in different places like Lebanon, Qatar, and eventually the UAE. That landed me where I am today in the UAE around 10 years ago through an internship that evolved into me being an advertising professional and leading to me being a marketing professional, and today somebody who owns a marketing solutions company.
Great. One thing leads to another, right? It's just another sign on the road, if you will, from one sign to the next. Let me ask you this question. You made what many would consider a risky transition from the narrative world of film and TV into brand storytelling. What was the moment or realization that convinced you this wasn't abandoning your craft, but actually expanding it?
To be honest, JD, I saw where the world was heading towards shorter format productions and elements. So that's where I got the inspiration to learn more about the advertising craft, where you're actually telling a story in a very short manner and selling a product through it. I merged that commercial side and that monetary side with this beautiful art of storytelling, rather than just staying in the artistic field. Many may say I sold out, and in a way that's true. But not only was it more lucrative, it was more of a learning curve for me because I learned a whole new discipline in the meantime. So it grew my film appreciation and my love for storytelling rather than divert me from it. I used a lot of the tools I learned throughout my studies and my own films and experiences, what I developed for clients are winning films and winning pieces of content.
Yeah. In my book, when I wrote Throttle Up, I spent a good deal of time talking about storytelling. The simulation work I do is what I refer to as interactive story making. The people in the room are in a story using a realistic scenario. They're rewriting their own story through the scenario, finding out what works and what doesn't work. It's so very powerful. One of the sources I used was a gent by the name of Jerome Bruner, who was at New York University, NYU. And he said stories contain two elements. It's hard to separate them, but there's two elements. One is logic, and the other one is meaning. How you tie those together is really the essence of story making. Let me ask you this question with that in mind. Tell me the essence, if you can shrink it down to the essence of short form storytelling. What is it that you have to do? What is it that story has to do in such a short framework to make people want to follow you or buy from you? Go ahead.
That's a great question, JD. And honestly, it's a mystery that a lot of brands are trying to uncover and work through. What I think is speaking the language of the audience. So as soon as you hear that language, and by language, I don't mean like Arabic, English, French, etc. I mean really something that resonates with the audience. That's when you catch them, right? So today they call it the hook, whereas you start with something that intrigues the viewer. But for me, it's all about speaking that language. When somebody hears something that is relevant to them, that's when they tune in and when you grab them. So that's the beauty of short form content. You have to tell that story really quickly, but you have to start that story very well. I like that logic and meaning example you shared because it's all about giving meaning to what they're watching, but at the same time, logically telling that story very quickly.
It's sort of like watching a movie, and I always liken it to this and say, here's the logic part of it. You're watching a movie and two people, a man and a woman, are trying to get away from the bad guys, as they say, trying to get away. And they're walking on a road. But the next scene, they're in a car. And you go, well, where did the car come from? Did they just find that on the road? So a lot of times you'll see that in these not very well done movies where the logic is just skipped. People don't know where this car came from or where this person that jumped in and saved their lives, where did they come from? So logic plays a very interesting and important role. When you're working with brands like Kellogg's or Nestle, you're essentially translating corporate objectives into human stories. What's the strategic thinking process that allows you to find that authentic narrative thread in what could otherwise be just marketing messaging? What separates marketing messaging, and we see that all the time, and yet there's this, as you say, this speaking the language, this storytelling side of that. How do you differentiate that or lean, if you will, on the side of the story-taking side? Go ahead.
Sure. In the advertising and the communication world, we call that the insight. And insight is when you're like in a stand-up comedy show, you're really watching something like very funny, and you see like, oh, it's me. How did he or she know that about me? It's something that resonates with you so hardly. And it's a truth. It's a truth that stems from a human reality. So that's kind of where we start off from. All brands want to talk their language, but what about the consumer or viewer's language? How do you translate it into that? So it comes from that insight. That's the beauty of strategic planning and strategic communications, is that you really have to look at what the insight is. How does your customer feel? And what is that truth that you can kind of twist and play on that would translate whatever you're selling them, whether it's a Nestle product, a Kellogg's cereal, or anything like that, into a human truth. For example, with Kellogg's, especially for Saudi Arabia, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, we realized that there's an insight that, especially for moms, they want to feed their kids the best breakfast that they can have and then go to work themselves and their kids to go and excel at school. but they have so much on their plate. And so we came up with the archetype that is called the super mom, where that mom has all of those superhuman abilities and capabilities in this modern era where they have so much on their shoulders. Kellogg's was there to give them that little help to take it off their plate and put it into the bowl and have their kids off to school. So that's it. That's kind of where it comes from, is all about the insight, reality, easing fears, and playing on the joy, happiness, and humor of the consumer. It's about bridging the gap between those things and bringing out the human truth in the story.
I'm a big fan of Don Miller's story brand. He's out with his new book called Story Brand 2.0. You start with, what is the problem? The fear, or the issue that people are trying to deal with. That's the place you start, because that's what people want. I mean, that's the whole thing that powers AI searches now, that powers Google searches. People have a discomfort, they have a fear, they have a pain, they need information. They're trying to solve maybe a little problem that they're facing. So they go searching for that kind of solution. So I agree. You got to start with, what is the problem? What are people overwhelmed with? I agree. That to me is really where the essence of the story begins, and how you track past that and say, well, this is how we can help you, kind of a thing, gets really important. Let me ask you this next question. I want to talk a little bit about technology.
Sure.
You've moved into the experiential space where technology connects brands with people. How has that changed your fundamental approach to storytelling, if at all? And what leadership skills do you have to develop that weren't required in traditional filmmaking? How has it changed you in your movement into technology?
To be honest, the way we moved into experiential was kind of by accident. I didn't know about that word at all when I was working in traditional or digital agencies. Experiential is a big world. It bridges the technology, but it's really all about that experience. By experience, I mean a story. We're going back to the brand, telling a story. They're most probably using technology in modern experiential. It really taught me a lot because we were kind of using machinery, AI, those types of solutions to tell a story, to connect with audiences in a way they haven't done before. So you have that surprise element, you have that newness, but at the same time, deep down, you have the essence of a story. For example, when we used to work on experiential events in trade shows, for telecom, for different government entities and things like that, we're still telling the story of that brand. We're using technology as a medium. And we were always adamant about not using technology for the sake of technology. We were using it as a segue into the story. In terms of leadership and how that pivoted me away from filmmaking, it's not really very different, because when you're a filmmaker, I wasn't a director per se. I was more on the sound production side, but I did direct an award-winning film. When you're directing a film or a movie, you're in charge of a big project or a big team. Those same notions spilled over into the experiential world, where you had to come up with the ideation, work with different stakeholders, especially specialists and geniuses who are very efficient in their field and something that you or myself don't understand. So that's kind of where I had to be humble, understand that these people have a lot of experience, a lot of things that I don't know about. So I had to relearn from scratch that discipline, that technology piece. How does it work? How do they implement it? What are the hurdles? What can and cannot be done? And it was just beautiful seeing it come to life and seeing people interact with such new pieces of technology with amazing experts that I've worked with through the years.
Yeah. Technology is running away fast. We've got AI, Saudi's Vision 2030 plan that they wrote in 2016 is underway, and the investments they're making in the technology centers are just eye-watering. It's unbelievable in what they're able to accomplish and what they're doing. So it's worldwide. If anybody has any ideas that things aren't changing, well, they're changing. I don't think it will, and I hope it won't, supplant human creativity. There's a lot of talk about that right now, but again, with the whole AI thing, which is so much hype right now, in my opinion, this is all, there'll be 5 jobs left. I think human creativity will always be at the top of the list. We'll get a chance to see how that works as time goes on. There's an inherent tension in brand storytelling. Corporations want to be seen as authentic. but they're also promoting their products. How do you navigate that paradox? And when you have to push back on a client to preserve narrative integrity. When you've got a client who wants to go down this road and you keep saying, wait a minute, we'll be careful here. You're losing your integrity in the translation.
Yeah, as somebody who's client facing, somebody who's a consultant for the client, we want their best interest. At the same time, clients, they're very confident in their abilities, of course, and their brand. They know their brand better than anybody else. But the problem is they're kind of in an echo chamber at some times, and they kind of repeat those same messages and those same mindsets to themselves. Whereas when you come here as an independent consultant, somebody who's seen other things or in the market, the way I navigate through it usually is, there's a phrase that says the proof is in the pudding. I really show them some of the other puddings that people are putting out there, the good stuff, the bad stuff, and showing them the results. And because everything is transparent nowadays, you can really pull up views and interactions and engagement on anybody's pages or platforms. So that's what I do. I just show them their closest competitors to show them, look at what they're doing. Is that where you want to be? Do you want to be better than them? Do you want to be the same? Do you want to be stuck in a sea of sameness, of nothingness, of you just being redundant and boring or maybe not interesting and not really have that authentic message come through? Because at the end of the day, and it's something that I also talked about in a video that I released on LinkedIn, it's very important for you to get away from your language and speak the consumer or the viewer's language. That's something that I always repeat to clients. You need to get out of your office, your echo chamber, and get down to the street, to the aisles, wherever you're selling your products, and maybe even online to look at the different comments, Reddit threads, and all of these things to kind of see where you're positioned at, or maybe where your competitors are and where you can do better than them. So again, it's all about hand-holding, explaining very thoroughly, but again, showing is the most important part.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Showing is better than telling any day of the week.
Yeah.
It's great when you show them failures, I think.
Mm-hmm.
When you say, here's what they thought. Here's where they went. Look what they did. So that they can go rear up a little bit and say, whoa, we don't want to do that. Here's what they were thinking along this line. And to many of them, it sounded correct. Mm-hmm. It sounded right. Like, oh, yeah, that'd be fine. But look what happened. And they lost so much by it. I think not only showing them the successes, but really showing them the failures is really where you grip them. You get them really thinking more your way. Any reflection on that idea?
You're completely on point. We've seen so many brands get canceled, boycotted in the last couple of years just for a small thing that perhaps corporate thought it was a good idea. I'm not going to name any names, but maybe beer brands, different fast food brands, different companies, all thought they were doing the best thing when in reality, the voice in the streets, in the comments and the threads were not related to that at all. They were stuck in their own ways, stuck in what they thought was genuine and true. That's what I always say to clients. It's not you as a person. Whatever you like, whatever you enjoy, whatever you find as good taste, others may not find it as such. So it's very important to move away from the I and how we feel about it in this room. Because at the end of the day, JD, it's very contagious. You're in that boardroom, you're in that meeting, and there's always a leader of some sort that, even if they're not a high level person, but anybody that says something kind of influences everybody else, whether that's good or bad. So that's important for me to always lead those meetings, to be that voice of reason, not because I'm an expert, just because I'm an outsider.
Yeah. And because of technology, the response is lightning quick. You know right away how the public is going to respond to that. And I think in many cases, I'm a big believer in having really succinct, very targeted mission statements. One sentence, the whole organization is bound by that one sentence. And a lot of times I think many of these organizations forget. They forget what their mission was. This is, why are we here? And they say, well, let's go off into this venture over here. And they lose their audience because it is conflicting with their basic mission in life. So, yeah, and boy, have we seen some mistakes. Let me tell you, there's some really doozies out there, as they say.
Exactly.
Let me ask you a question here, if I can. Film has box office and reviews. Brand storytelling has KPIs and engagement metrics. How do you define success in your work now? And has that evolution changed how you think about the impact of storytelling?
Interesting question. I mean, at the end of the day, the impact is not only in the numbers, the impact is in the impression that you leave on your audience. And sometimes that cannot be measured. A lot of marketers nowadays are behind the data-driven insights, data-driven findings, and all of these reports that nobody really reads. It's about understanding and asking the average person within your target audience or just outside of it, whether they've heard of your brand, understood your brand, watched your latest piece of content, or would watch your piece of content. That's very important to really engage with the consumer. Yeah, you had films that would do great in the box office, that would be masterpieces, but they didn't live the test of time. Same thing with ads, same thing with pieces of content. You had viral views on one piece of content, but then the brand itself doesn't live on. It's all about longevity in what I do. I'm building for the future and I'm building slowly. I'm not a fan of doing something that will be a hit today, but then die off tomorrow. So that's what I always try to do, is create timeless content that will live on for years and have clients pay millions in production. No, it's all about being consistent with that message. The more consistent you are, the more people will remember you. This company's been about this for about 10 years. Even though we've only seen bits and pieces of it throughout the years. For example, that toothpaste brand is all about white teeth. That one is all about activated charcoal. If you just drip it and microdose it to consumers, I feel that's where you win, rather than just doing one hit piece where you do one big brand experience or one, stunt, and everybody's like, whoa, that was amazing. Somebody flew off from an airplane with a sign about activated charcoal, but then 6 months down the line, people already forgot it because you exhausted your budget, you exhausted your energy, and you didn't really build on consistently. So that's kind of where I am a fan of building those brands consistently.
Yeah, and of course in films, there are films that did terrible at the box office when they came out and have become cult classics.
Exactly.
They had the lasting power. It just took time for people to discover them. It just took time for people to say, wait a minute, this is really an amazing film. Cultures change, people change, generations change, and the new generations come along and grip onto something and say, maybe that generation didn't understand this film, but boy, we get it. We understand where they're going. But it's so very interesting to me. Films get rediscovered all the time.
True.
They get rediscovered all the time. And you put them into a theater, maybe 10 theaters where you're going to just reissue the film, maybe 140 or 50 years ago. I remember when they did that with Gone with the Wind, right? The great Gone with the Wind movie, right? With Clark Gable. And yeah, it did really well. But when they brought it back out again and put it on the big screen, people flocked to the movie theaters to see it again. It reminded them when they were growing up and they saw the film 20 or 25 or 30 years ago. It means a lot different to them now. A lot of that is very reminiscent of film as it is today. I'll tell you an interesting story. I'm working on, in fact, today is the first time I'm going to do it. By the time this hits the street, it won't be news. I'm actually working on what I call a field report right now. We're blending two formal reports, one from Gallup and one from Development Dimensions International, and a number of podcasts that I've had on my podcast show, people talking about different things in the world of HR, for example. So I'm hoping that that book will be released by the end of January. But I decided a couple of days ago that what I would do a ramp up to the book. So I'm actually creating LinkedIn carousels. Like you said, dripping my way to the report. Each piece building on the other piece, all about employee engagement. How do we engage employees in a much better way in the workplace? That's what the field report is going to be about. I sort of followed that methodology, build up to it, tell 4 stories that build up to it, and then hit them with the report. It's going to be interesting how it works itself out. So
Amazing.
that was great. I think it's a good idea. What do you think?
I just developed a course called Marketing for HR a couple of weeks ago because I kind of saw what you're talking about right now is that kind of lack of employee engagement, lack of employee trust. A lot of HR teams, they try to go buy the book but they're stuck in between both sides. At the same time, they're playing the company side. At the same time, they're trying to be human as much as possible. There's a distrust with the modern day employee. There's a lot of communication and marketing they need to do for themselves, for the department and for the company. And there's a lot of targets that are being put on their heads as well, right? So they have to work on employer branding, on marketing the company itself, because the marketing departments are so overwhelmed with the product rather than the company. So I think it's a great idea. I really look forward to it.
Yeah. So I'll get the first piece out today. And what they miss
Yeah.
is the work world has changed. It's changed dramatically. This top down level hierarchies are having trouble dealing with the rate of complex change. HR still trying to hire from the old playbook. So we'll see how that works itself out. Let's move on a little bit now. And let me ask you this question. You talk about pushing the boundaries of creativity to forge authentic connections between brands and audiences. Looking ahead, and we're getting close to the end, what do you see as the next frontier in brand storytelling? And what should leaders be preparing for now? What's the next step, Kareem?
I think in an age where AI is taking over a lot of technologies, authenticity and connectivity will be the next way forward. And that means creating communities around a certain brand. The better you can create a community, the more the brand will resonate with that community and they will become your advocates. The medium, the style, the look and feel can change, and the tools can be AI and different new tech pieces. However, it's all about the essence and creating something real, connecting with people and making them feel part of a community. I think that the brands that are winning today are all community-based. You talk about Tesla, any really big brand today that has success in the market and is doing well, even if it's something that is underground, like perhaps Chinese automobiles, they have their own community. They know they're the underdogs, perceived as something not legitimate yet, but still they're trying. They have all of these tools, but that's a community centered around it. And they're becoming the brand advocates. They're becoming the word of mouth that's going out to the market. And who do you trust more than another human? Not an ad, not a communication piece, not a sponsored post. It's another human. So if you, JD, tell me that a certain car is very good and actually better than the legacy cars, I would buy it. I would actually look into it. Same thing about a beverage, about a snack, whatever that may be. So that's what I think is the next way forward, to create communities, create brand advocates and ambassadors that are real humans, not influencers or people paid to do so, but people who believe in your brand because they've experienced it.
That's a very insightful and profound observation. It makes absolute sense. And I think that makes so much sense to me, that people are gathering around their own community, whether it's a car, whatever it is, whether it's a cereal, whether it's a health kick, keto, or different things. People are forming communities. In the end, those communities may be the filtration system for anything coming into the community itself. It's interesting. It's not one big population making a decision. It's communities. We are now a community of communities making their own decisions for themselves and considering what's right and what's not right. So that's a very wonderful observation. Let me ask you the last question, and we can call it a day. And that is, for you personally, where do you see yourself going in the next couple of years, 2 to 3 years? What do you hope for the future, Kareem?
You know, JD, the past few years, I spent a lot of time in doubt. I spent a lot of time in fear, in anxiety about the future, about my abilities, my capabilities. You know, the world around me changing so quickly, especially post-COVID. But I think for the future, and especially this year, I made a resolution that I'm going to go from doubting to doing, executing, not thinking twice, hopping on this podcast, hopping on this trend, hopping on this opportunity without really thinking, is it me? Is it not me? Should I not? You know, in Arabic, there's a saying that motion brings glory, right? So that's what it's all about. It's really being in motion, always on, and always taking on new challenges and opportunities that arise. So again, just going from doubting to doing. That's kind of my motto for the next couple of years.
Yeah, I agree. I tell you what, I'm going to check in with you at the end of the year, and then we can see how we both did, because I agree. It's the same things that I'm doing. I'm starting a whole new push, trying to help organizations solve the engagement issue with employees. How can we create an environment where people do their best work every day, who are excited, who do the extra 20%? I think I have a way of helping organizations do that. I'm going to go down that road hard and fast and try new things as well. So I agree with you 100%. It's a profound observation. I think it's the way to go. Doubt loves to creep in and stop us. There's that old saying, for every one person that tells you you're doing a great thing, 12 will tell you you're out of your mind. So maybe we should be a little bit out of our minds this year and get down the road. I really understand that. I accept it, and I appreciate it. Listen, Karim, this has been a wonderful podcast interview with you. I appreciate it so very, very much. I wish you great motion
Thank you.
in the future and great success in everything that you do. Thank you so very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Didi. Honestly, it's an honor. I'm a big fan. Love your insights. Love the way you treat things. Love the way you think about things. You're so forward thinking. And you really see the problems and find the solutions for them. So thank you again. It's an honor.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. This is Dr. John Dentico. Remember, meaning is the new money, but it requires building the structures that deliver it. If today's conversation challenged your thinking or gave you a framework worth implementing, share it with a leader who needs to hear it. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and visit throttleupleadership.com for more resources. Until next time, keep throttling up and keep the people at the center of everything you do.